I was already standing outside when I understood what had happened. The hallway lights clicked off behind the frosted glass. The door locked with a soft sound, almost polite. My husband's laughter was low, confident, the kind of laugh a man gives when he believes the world is finally arranged in his favor. I stood there with my coat half on, phone in my hand, and nothing else. That was the moment, the middle of the disaster, the part people usually tell later, once they feel safe enough to shape it into a story. For me, it was raw, immediate, sharp. I knocked once, then again. I said his name, calmly. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I could already feel something inside me cooling, flattening. I knew him well enough to recognize that laugh. He thought he had won. What he didn't know was that I had already stopped being his wife. We had been married for 9 years, long enough to build habits that looked like love from the outside, long enough to learn each other's weaknesses and call them strengths when it was convenient. He was proud of his intelligence, his planning. He loved to say he always thought 3 steps ahead. That night, he told me I was the one who didn't plan. It started with a quiet dinner. Too quiet. He barely touched his food. He asked questions that sounded casual but felt measured. Where I'd been that afternoon, who I'd met, whether I trusted him. I answered honestly, I always did. That was my mistake early on. Honesty with someone who collects information is just unpaid labor. After dinner, he asked me to step into the hallway, said he needed privacy for a call. I remember the way he avoided my eyes when he said it, the way his hand hovered near the door handle longer than necessary. I stepped out. The lock turned. Then the laugh. Then his voice, soft and satisfied. You should have listened when I warned you. That was all. I stood there for almost 10 minutes before I moved. Not because I was frozen, because I was thinking. The building was quiet. No neighbors opening doors, no one curious. He had timed it well. I walked down the stairs slowly, every step grounding me. By the time I reached the street, I already knew this wasn't about anger. It was about control. He had always liked control. Early in our marriage, he framed it as protection. He handled the finances because he was better with numbers. He kept important documents in his office because he was organized. He spoke for both of us at meetings because he was clearer. I let him, not because I was weak, but because I was patient, and because patience looks like trust when someone wants it to. The first betrayal came quietly, a bank alert on my phone that didn't match our spending, a transfer I didn't recognize. When I asked him about it, he smiled and said it was an internal adjustment. He kissed my forehead like I was a child who had interrupted something important. I watched, I listened, I learned. The second betrayal was louder, a conversation I overheard by accident, my name used in a tone I didn't recognize, casual, dismissive. He was talking about me like an asset that had already been depreciated. That was when I started keeping my own records. Not screenshots, not angry notes, just dates, times, patterns. I matched his confidence with silence. That confused him. Men like him rely on reaction. Without it, they misstep. I didn't confront him when I found out he had redirected joint funds into an account only he controlled. I didn't ask why my access had become limited. I adjusted my behavior instead. I asked fewer questions. I smiled more. He relaxed. That was the hope phase, the part where he believed the problem had resolved itself. The deeper betrayal came disguised as concern. He suggested I take time off work, said I looked tired, said stress wasn't good for me. He framed it like care, but it was timing. My income was the last piece he didn't fully control. I agreed. Not immediately. I hesitated just enough to make him feel persuasive. When I finally said yes, he looked relieved, proud. He told people later that it was his idea to support me. What he didn't know was that my name was still on more than he remembered. Hidden leverage isn't about secrets, it's about what people forget they shared when they thought they were in charge. Years earlier, during a refinance, he had asked me to handle some paperwork while he was traveling. I did, carefully, thoroughly. Copies went where copies should go. Originals stayed where they belonged. He never checked. He trusted his own systems too much to imagine someone else building one alongside them. The night he locked me out, he thought he was ending something. What he was actually doing was starting the clock. I didn't go to a friend's house. I didn't call my family. I went to a hotel near my old office, somewhere neutral, somewhere quiet. I slept for 3 hours and woke up calm. The next morning, he texted like nothing had happened. "Let's talk tonight." No apology, no explanation, just an assumption of access. I replied, "We will." That was it. He came home that evening expecting tears. He got politeness. I made tea, I listened. He explained how things had become complicated, how he needed space, how locking the door was a mistake, but also a message. I nodded. I thanked him for being honest. He didn't see the shift. That was his flaw. He believed dominance was loud. He didn't recognize silence when it stopped being fear. Over the next weeks, I let him believe he was reorganizing our life. I signed what I needed to sign. I refused what I needed to refuse, softly. I asked questions that sounded curious, not suspicious. Every answer gave me more structure. There was a moment, halfway through, when he slipped. He bragged about how clean everything was going to be once I was gone, how no one would ever question his version of events. That was when I knew the timing was right.
I didn't confront him in private. I waited. I let him finalize things, let him feel the satisfaction of completion. The night he announced he was filing for separation, he looked lighter, younger. I congratulated him. The revelation didn't come from me. That's important. Power lasts longer when it looks like consequence, not revenge. The documents surfaced through a routine review, ownership papers, financial trails, signatures he had assumed were irrelevant because they didn't belong to him. They did something worse. They contradicted his story. He was called in, then called again. Each time his confidence thinned. He tried to laugh it off, tried to charm his way through. Those were the traits he was proud of. They failed him. By the time he understood what was happening, it was too late to react emotionally. Everything was already procedural, quiet. I wasn't even in the room when his voice broke for the first time. The aftermath wasn't dramatic. It was thorough. Accounts frozen, authority questioned, narratives reversed. People who had admired his control started distancing themselves. Not because he was cruel, but because he was careless. I watched from a distance, not with joy, with clarity. Months later, he tried to talk to me again, not to apologize, to understand. He wanted to know how I had done it without him noticing. I told him the truth. "You were always looking 3 steps ahead," I said. "I stayed where you forgot to look." He didn't respond. I walked away without turning back, not because I was angry, because I was done. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. The most permanent revenge doesn't raise its voice. It lets people hear their own echo. And once they do, there's no locking the door behind you that can save them.